Okay, so we see that plugging in can help simplify algebra questions. A few plugging in tips. First, choose easy numbers for yourself. In the last few questions, what we saw was we chose 2, 3, 4, numbers like that, numbers that are easy to deal with. Part of the strategy, part of the purpose behind plugging in is to simplify our lives. So choose numbers that are easy to calculate. In some other questions, numbers like 5 or 10 would be good. There's a few rules that we need to get ingrained as soon as possible. Don't choose 0 or 1. It's just not a good number to choose if you can avoid it. Some questions will force it, but if we can avoid it, we'll try to avoid it. Don't choose numbers that are already given in a question. So if the question says like 8x, don't make the x 8 also. Just don't choose numbers you already see in the question. And then check all 5 choices every time. We'll see why these rules apply once we kind of get fully used to plugging in, but for now, let's just get them ingrained. We need to understand them as soon as possible. Let's look at a couple more plugging in questions, a couple other scenarios where it can apply. So number 17, we see it says when the positive integer n is divided by 6, the remainder is 2. What is the remainder when 24n is divided by 36? Well, the benefit here is we can plug in still even though we don't see any variables in the answer choice. It's a grid-in question. There are no answer choices. But plugging in is still an option to make this question easier for us. All you need to do is plug in and follow the rules they give. They give a rule that when you take a number, n, and you divide it by 6, the remainder needs to be 2. So you could plug in 8. 8 divided by 6 goes in once with a remainder of 2. You can also plug in 14 because 14 divided by 6 goes in 2 times with a remainder of 2. Anything that has a remainder of 2, you're allowed to plug it in. So now that we have our n, let's see what they're actually asking us to do. They want the remainder on 24n. So let's find what 24n is worth. 24 times 8, that's 192. Okay. Is divided by 36. So 192 divided by 36 goes in about 5-ish times. Let's figure out exactly what that is. 5 times 36, that's 180. So 192 minus 180, there's a difference of 12. So the remainder, when you divide it by 36, the remainder is 12. So that would be your answer. You'd grid that in and you'd get the point. Even though there were no variables, you could still do it. It's still an option to plug in. In fact, sometimes the test writers want you to kind of be plugging in, or at least taking that mentality. Number 12 here is a good example. So it says in the table above, if y equals 2x plus 3, what is the value of b? So we have some numbers in the table, 2, 7, and 4, but then we have some variables too, a and b. Well, the table's connected to the equation, so we can kind of probably use the 2 to help us out. Let's focus on this middle row. So when the x is 4, that's supposed to spit out a y of a. Well, couldn't we just plug that into the equation and see what the a is supposed to be? So a equals 2 times 4 plus 3. Or a equals 8 plus 3. Or a equals 11. So now we know a is worth 11, kind of by plugging in what they wanted us to plug in. So let's do it again in the final row. If a is 11, what's the b going to be worth? Well, the a is in the x spot this time, so the 11 goes in x. So b equals 2 times 11 plus 3. Well, that's b equals 22 plus 3, or b equals 25, which is exactly what an answer says. Answer D. So they wanted us to take a plug-in mentality here and just go through their table until we had the answer. So plugging in is a very powerful strategy. It can be used to simplify algebra questions into arithmetic-based questions, as we first saw. It can be used on grid-in questions to answer those, even though there's no variables in an answer choice. There are no answer choices whatsoever. And sometimes it's even kind of what they want you to do. They want you to take that mentality. So we need to be comfortable plugging in. It is a primary strategy on the SAT.